Well, welcome everyone. This is the Wealthy Speaker University teleclass series. I'm your host, Jane Atkinson. I'm the author of The Wealthy Speaker 2.0. Now, today's class is entitled Becoming a Category of One with the author of said book, Joe Calloway. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, Jane. Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to get this started. So we're actually just going to launch right in. Joe, give us a little bit of your background. I didn't read a big, long bio for you this time. Let's hear a little bit how you got started in this business.
Well, I started out actually doing really highly customized training workshops, almost workshops made to order for different companies. I came out of a brief stint in the real estate industry. So I was doing a lot of training, a lot of sales-oriented training. And in doing that, clients started saying, hey, I'm a member of a professional association. Could you give a speech to our group? Or we're having our annual company meeting. Could you give a speech? So I started transitioning from training to speaking and ended up going into keynote speaking. Early on, it was really general motivation, but it was very business-oriented always. It was business motivation. Then customer service, then branding, then becoming a Category 1 was released, and the speaking was largely based on that. Other books followed, and the speaking would be based on the books. And now I've got a new presentation called Customer-Driven Growth. For the last 6 or 7 years, my work has become progressively more and more interactive, even in a pure keynote slot. I limit my audience size to 1,000 because of that. If it gets over that, it gets cumbersome. I've never used PowerPoint. So that's the Cliff Notes version.
Okay. So, having met you, this is something that we've never really shared before on these recordings, Joe. My first NSA convention was 1994 in Washington, D.C., and I saw this guy walking around with his red, white, and blue jacket on. I think they had asked you to wear that, and I recognized that Joe Calloway was a force to be reckoned with in this industry, and I thought, I'm going to get to know that guy. And we became friends probably just a few years after that and have remained friends for the last 20 years. And I am just so grateful. I just have to tell everybody on the line how amazing it is to have someone in your corner who really gets it, who really understands the industry. You have continued to thrive this entire time, and over 30 years now for you in the industry, correct?
Yeah, I had my biggest year last year.
Wow.
And now I'm working on this year because it goes back to reset all the time. Every time you get a booking, you're back to reset, and you have to get that next one. So oh my gosh, you cannot let up. You cannot let up in this business, not for a second, or it'll bite you, it'll eat you up.
Well, I don't think there has been anyone that I have watched reinvent kind of more than you, and I think we should talk about that just a minute. The benefits of reinvention, and that maybe 18 to 36 months might be a timeline for it. I know yours are sometimes even shorter than that, but what do you think the benefits of reinvention are for the people on the line?
Well, I think, and let me use another word too, which is evolution, because some people the word reinvention might not resonate with them. They might think, no, I don't want to, start from scratch every 18 months. But you certainly have to evolve, but you have to evolve very, very quickly. Here's the deal. I would invite everybody to go look at 6 Speakers Bureau's home pages. Go back in 3 months and look at those home pages again. You're going to see a whole new set of speakers on there. The influx of new people into this business is greater now than I have ever seen it. There's a ton of new people getting into it. And I mean new people that come with credentials, that come with talent, that come with expertise, or a really unique story to tell. These are really heavyweight speakers, in all fee ranges. So, well, and then you add to that what the market wants from a speaker continues to evolve and continues to change, and the pace of that change increases all the time. So what that means to all of us, including me, and in some ways especially me, and I'll say why in a minute, if you get stuck in one position in the marketplace, then you become yesterday's news pretty quickly. Now, you can stay in the same area of expertise. You can be an expert on sales your entire career. That's fine. But whether it's sales or technology or even as a humorist or a motivational speaker, if your work doesn't evolve with the rest of the world and with the influx of competition, then you get left behind. And I think the biggest threat to any of us is to become irrelevant. And that can happen in the blink of an eye. We've got to reinvent. We've got to evolve to stay even minimally competitive. And the reason I say that's especially true for me is because I've been doing it for so long. You know, it's a very, very double-edged sword. Not everybody, but a lot of people that have been in this business for any length of time, they know who I am. And so it's on the one hand, oh, yeah, Joe Calloway, we know him, good guy. On the other hand, been there, done that. You know, we've booked Joe over the years, but now there's new people out there. So what I have to do is constantly reinvent in the eyes of the marketplace, but it can't be reinvention just for the sake of changing or doing something different. You've got to reinvent for one reason, to bring more value. It's got to be about bringing value, or, I mean, you can't just reinvent for the sake of, again, being different. That's silly. You've got to reinvent only for the sake of bringing value.
Now, sometimes people will reinvent because they are launching a new book or something of that nature,
yeah.
And you have done that over the past, starting with the Category of One. I really saw a very pivotal moment in your career come when that book launched. How was that kind of a game changer for you?
It was a huge game changer. I had two books previously, self-published, and self-published is fine. Self-published is more fine than it's ever been. The whole book game is changing. And you can self-publish and be just as credible with your book as anybody with a published book. That game is really changing. But I've had 5 published books. Before that, I had 2 self-published books, and they were speaker books. They weren't standalone. This person is an expert. The book, the real test of a book, of the quality of a book, if you want it to get you work, is that the book has to stand on its own with people that have never seen you speak, never heard of you. And Category of One, becoming the Category of One, did that. It absolutely repositioned me in the marketplace. And in the last 10 years, my books have gotten me more work than any other factor by far. A CEO reads one of my books and says, get this guy. The other thing is that my books are tiebreakers. If I'm talking with a prospective client, whether it's direct or through a bureau, and the client says, or I know that they're looking at 3 or 4 other speakers, which they almost always are, you know, considering other people. What I say is, look, let me send you a couple of books. You look at those and you'll know whether I'm the right speaker or not. And way more often than not, once they get the books and take a look at those, I get the job. Not every time, but over 50% of the time. If I can get the books in their hand, I'll get the job. So having not just a book, but a good book, if you want it to generate work for you and reposition you, is critical. Now, if you want a souvenir book, because a lot of times people hear a speaker and they just want to take home something from that speech. As Larry Wingate used to say, they probably will never even read the book. Mm-hmm. They just want something to take home. That's fine, too, and that can be a huge moneymaker for speakers. There are lots of speakers that have made fortunes selling in the back of the room. My books are generally sold in advance, in bulk. So there's just different models, and they can all work.
And I think that we need to establish that your model is perfect for you, but that you know that there could be more of this, more of that, more money in different areas of the business, but you're choosing not to go that path. Your business model would be books, pre-sold, the preference, keynotes, some consulting work, maybe the things that we're doing together with the Wealthy Speaker University and a few other things like that. And then what you earn, you do something else with that money. Do you want to talk about that for a second? I mean, that's just the way that you've chosen your path.
Yeah. The great thing about this business is there are as many ways to do it as there are people on this call. And they can all work beautifully, absolutely beautifully. I never tell anybody to do it the way I've done it. There's lots of different ways to do it. I've tried lots of different ways, and I've settled into a model that works for me, which is really centered around the keynote. And the keynote and the books, and they are synergistic. They feed each other. And I do some workshop work, and I do some pretty high-priced consulting work, but I don't do a lot of it. People talk about streams of income. My other streams of income are from investments that I make. I mean, the usual stuff, the stock market and all that, but I'm pretty heavily involved in a group that does real estate projects. We build apartment complexes and townhouse complexes and mixed-use stuff like that. So that's my other stream of income. What I really focus on with speaking, which is what generates my cash to have to invest in this other stuff. I'm a keynote guy. I really focus on the keynote, and so I put my energy into being as absolutely competitive as I can in that arena, and that works well for me. But as you say, there are lots and lots of other ways. There are lots of other revenue streams that can serve a speaker incredibly well.
Right. And there is no one way. I think that everybody is going to carve out their path. If you're interested in improving your keynote, then, that's kind of the way to go. And I think the focus on any one thing is just so when you think about dividing your time up amongst 7 or 8 or 9 different revenue streams, you know that there's going to be a little bit of suffrage at some point along the way. That's not to say, I have clients who are out there doing 80 engagements a year, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in every single audience, and they could be really probably doubling their annual income by just having something to follow up how, that these people want to be.
Absolutely.
But I love that you're keeping your business, your speaking business, very, very simple, and I think that's cool. Now, you just came off a 27 engagement tour with one of your largest banking clients. That inspired another reinvention. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, real quickly, what it was is this client was pretty specific in what they wanted me to do with this series of all over the United States presentations that I did. And so I ended up writing, it was a 90% brand new presentation that I wrote just for them. I took it out on the road, and darned if, number one, it didn't work really well. I mean, and everybody on this call knows that feeling when you try some new stuff and you're thinking, holy crap, it's working. And that was the feeling I had with the whole thing. And then the other side that was even more important to me was that I was really enjoying doing it. I mean, I got such a huge kick out of doing this presentation. So it's working for me in every aspect. What that then prompted me to do was make that my absolute lead program now. I mean, I'm rolling this out as a brand new program, and for about 2 months on my website, that was the only program that was on there. I took everything else off, and I sent that to all the bureaus and all my existing clients. I made a little short promotional video, and everybody can see it. Anybody that wants to, it's just go to joecallaway.com, and you'll see that my preview video is on there, like most of us have. But then there's this one prominently featured video just to explain. It's just me talking to the camera about this one program. Now, I still have bureaus and clients ask for some of my other programs, and I've added them back in, but they're at the bottom of the list. So, yeah, it gave me a whole new program, and it was a little bit of a reinvention, certainly a realignment to feature this new program as the centerpiece.
So customer-driven growth. There's something
Yeah.
to add on to that. What's the second part?
I just changed the subtitle, so let me see if I can remember it. Customer-driven growth, how thriving businesses create a never-ending flow of new customers, or a never-ending stream of new customers. Yeah, that's what it is.
Very good. Okay, that sounds good. Now, we did a Becoming a Category of One presentation last month or 2 months ago in Toronto for the Canadian convention, and we're going to be doing it again in Washington, which will be an incredibly full circle moment for me, being that my first conference is in Washington. You and I are going to do this presentation again with our good buddy Chris Young in Washington this summer for NSA. So
yeah.
I hope people on the line will come and see us at that event. Now, we have drilled it down to 3 Ps, and we'll just talk briefly about them. Obviously, we only have a little bit of time here today, but we'll do more detail in Washington. Positioning is the first one, and everybody's heard me talk about being an expert first and a speaker second. But I'm really surprised, Joe, at how often, and sometimes it's on really, really amazing speakers as well, I have to what I call scrape the speaker off of people. That when I go onto their websites, it's, hey, hire me, I'm a speaker, rather than, hey, this is the problem that I help to solve. What do you think about the expert first positioning versus speaker positioning?
Well, Brian Palmer, who's the owner of the National Speakers Bureau and a good friend of ours, and probably some people on the call, Brian's been in the bureau business for over 25 years. And Brian said a few years ago that he really started to see a shift in what his clients were asking for. They used to call up and say, Brian, we're having a meeting, we need a speaker. And it started changing to people calling up saying, Brian, we're having a meeting, we need somebody who can help us with fill in the blank. And so Brian now says they don't book speakers as much as they book really smart people who can speak. Now, the exception to the expert thing, Jane, would be a personality, like our friend Larry Winget. And Larry is very clear about his positioning. He says, my job is to be Larry Winget. And it's really true, because Larry is a personality speaker. He is known simply for being Larry Winget, the pit bull of motivational speaking. And so he leads with his personality. See, for me, I have to be an expert because I have no personal story. I've not climbed a mountain. I've not done any extraordinary physical or any other kind of feat. I have not been the CEO of a company for 10 years. So I'm an expert on improving business performance. And when I stand in front of, I generally speak to fairly senior leadership groups, business owners, CEOs, C-level executives. I've got to know more about the aspect of business that I'm talking about than anybody in the room. And so my number one job is not to be a speaker. My number one job is to understand what works in business. Being a speaker is the way I deliver it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I do think, and it's true more and more and more, that not for everybody, but for most of us, I agree with you 100%. We need to lead with what problem we solve, what opportunities we can create, how we can help our clients advance their strategy. Now, if you're a motivational speaker, if you're a humorist, obviously the positioning is going to be different. But even in those arenas, it's changed. it's changed over the last few years. The market continues to change how they ask for us and the basis on which they look for us and which one of us they choose. So, yeah, I think your positioning is incredibly important. And the thing that I see is that there are so many speakers that there's not alignment between their positioning and their materials, their videos, their books, their online training programs, their keynotes. It's all over the map. If they could get it in alignment, oh my gosh, it is so powerful in terms of getting business. So powerful.
It really is. It really is. And people, I think, don't do it out of fear that they will lose business when in fact the opposite will likely happen. I think that people can, when you are unsure of what lane you are going down, this is where the term pick a lane came in. That was actually a Joeism that seems to have taken off. And when we talk about picking a lane, we're talking about a lane involved in your topic. Sometimes it's your market as well, but for the most part, I really mean pick a lane in terms of your topic. When you put that at the top of your umbrella, which is kind of your business model, everything you do flies back up, and it should be in alignment. You should be easily able to connect the dots between every topic that you have and the lane that you have chosen for yourself. And a great question for people to ask themselves is, what do I want to be known for 5 years from now? And if they're delivering 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of topics and in different lanes, then basically you're saying, I don't want to be known for anything 5 years from now. I'll just be a generalist.
Yeah, and we're not saying just have one speech.
Mm-hmm.
You can have, as you just said, you can have a number of different presentations that you do. But if they don't make sense under one defining, as you say, and it's a great term, umbrella, then you lose credibility. The client looks at me and says, this guy claims to be an expert on time management, on sales, on 30 different things. You can't be an expert on everything. And people are looking for somebody that runs deep, that has got a depth of knowledge and expertise, and then brings the more remarkable, the more engaging, the more differentiating your delivery skills, then the more powerful the whole package becomes. But this whole idea of how are you positioned it's more important than it's ever been.
So the 3 Ps, back to those again, are positioning is number 1. The second one is product. And the third one is process. We're going to get to that in a second. So you just transitioned us nicely into product. And what we're talking about when we say product is the speech, the material, the content, the delivery, all of that packaged up. And now I know that this is not something that you rest on your laurels. You continue to improve. Talk to us about what might go into a speech. For instance, the one that you just recreated for that big client, customer-driven growth. What went into putting together a speech like that?
What went into that was the client saying, and you could take the word client and substitute the market saying, because we've got to pay attention. Not that here's a real pitfall, chasing a hot topic, saying, I'm just going to find out what's hot out there, and I'll speak about that. It's tough to make that approach work. That's the cart before the horse. What you got to do is establish expertise, and then you evolve with the market. This client came to me and said, look, you're going to be speaking to small business owners, about 300 of them at every stop. There's going to be 27 cities where you're going to do this. So you're going to have a mixed audience. I said, that's fine. I love a mixed audience, and I love small business owners. That's just a hot spot for me. And they said, number one, we want something extremely topical, extremely top of mind for them. Number two, we want it to involve the Internet. We want you to at least touch on using the Internet, because all of our small business customers, they're all curious about how to leverage the Internet. And so what I did was, this is the simplest thing in the world. I simply went online and started looking at surveys of small business customers, surveys done by Gallup, by IBM, by the client who happened to be Chase Bank, by other companies, by Microsoft. And by far, the number one challenge for small business owners is growing the business. How do I grow the business? Well, the most powerful, and I knew this from other just ongoing research that I do, the most powerful factor in purchase decisions are recommendations by existing customers. Okay, so we've got a challenge. The way you solve it is by getting recommendations from small business customers. Where are most of those taking place? They're taking place on the Internet, on different review sites, TripAdvisor, Yelp, whatever. And so how do you get recommendations? You do it by creating a customer experience that will cause them to make recommendations. So that's the very general string of how I got to the topic of customer-driven growth. But what I did then was, for about 60 days, I worked on creating a presentation around those points that also was very high audience involvement, high audience participation. So I put it together, and darn if it didn't really, really work well. So it's been a good one for me. But I was very, very careful with that product to connect it to the market, to what's alive and kicking and on top of everybody's mind in the market today. But Jane, with all my topics, I work on my presentations every single day. People say, what's your number one priority and how you spend your time? For me, it's product improvement. If I keep making my work better, then I don't have to worry about making money. That'll happen.
And I think that shows. I mean, how do you sustain a 30-year business and have your best year ever last year? I mean, that's the proof is in the pudding right there. So I think that getting better on the platform, that's why we focus so heavily on that part in some of the programs that we do in the Wealthy Speaker University, our Master's Platinum class. We talk a lot about, and I know that a lot of the people that went through last year took their presentation from, maybe like around a 7, some people right up to a 9. It was just incredible, and the feedback that they were getting was really quite phenomenal.
It is. It's just incredible what can happen, how you can shift your career by making your keynote better, by making your presentation better, or by making your workshop better. The biggest mistake I think that speakers can make, along with not having all the parts of their career in alignment, certainly not having all the parts of their marketing in alignment, is when I hear them say, no, my presentation's great. I don't have to work on that. That's fine. I just need to find somebody that'll sell me, or I just need a new website or whatever. Well, wait a minute. Let's back up. Really? You don't have to work on your presentation. It's as good as it needs to be. I have no idea what that's like. In 30 years, I have never been there. Mine always have to get better, because I tell you what, my competition, oh my gosh, my competitors, some of whom are my really close friends, they are so good at what they do, it makes my head spin. And if I stand still for one day, I'm a goner, because they're getting better. And so for me, product improvement, and also researching what new products you could introduce, how you can reposition your products, how you can reconfigure your products to do other things for your client. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's very important.
Well, the third P, so we've done positioning and product, and the third P is process, which is really how you take an engagement from the initial stages where there's just a prospect all the way through till sales and after service. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that people have a really strong opinion about what it's like to work with Joe Calloway.
Well, this is good timing to talk about process. I'm doing a customer touch point thing today. I'm going back to clients for the last 5 years, and I'm doing an email personalized to each of them. It's not going to be a mass email. They're going out one at a time. And it would be like, Dear Bill, it's been 4 years since New Orleans. I keep up with you guys, and I see that you're still continuing to grow. I just wanted to say hi. I hope 2015 is off to a good start. Thank you so much for your business in the past. And I wanted to pass along 4 ideas that might help you grow your business. So because I can't waste their time. I can't send them an email that just says, hi, hire me, hire me, hire me. I need to give them something that reminds them how smart I am.
Yes,
and
exactly.
does it in a way that they say, oh, my gosh, at tomorrow morning's meeting, I want to talk about this. This is a great idea. That's a touch point. That's part of process. And so you not only stay in touch with the customer, but you make yourself valuable to the customer with every touch point.
So back us up to the very
Sure.
beginning. The first time they call you and leave a voicemail on your phone, talk about the time it takes for you to get back to them.
Yeah, well, imagine lightning. Right after I called into this conference call, an email came up from a bureau. And while we were getting set up for the call, I wrote them back with one hand and said, I'm going on a conference call. Because they were inquiring about a date, availability. I'm going on a conference call. I'll get back to you in a little over an hour, which I will. As soon as we end this call, I'm going to get back to the bureau. But, I mean, when I'm changing planes, if I'm in Dallas changing planes, I check my email, and I'll go, that can wait, that can wait, that can wait. That's a client. That's a bureau. That's a prospect. Now. Get back to them now. And sometimes it will be, I'm changing planes. Be back to you when I get to San Francisco. But Jane, there are 3 things I've been doing for 20 years. Number 1 is constant product improvement. Number 2 is immediate response to a customer. And number 3 is be incredibly easy to work with. That's it. That's the big 3. And the last 2 are process. It's incredibly fast response to client and being easy to work with.
And we've talked about this on other audios before, but you think nothing of saying, you know what, why don't I just fly out there to see you? And, you have the job before you even get on that plane.
Yeah, there are times, and I gauge it. I mean, obviously, I don't want to hop on a plane every day because I want to be home. But if I can go there and back, if I'm talking to a client and I'm thinking, this would be a really good job for me, and I think it could also lead to some more work with them down the path, they'll say, well, we're talking to 3 or 4 different speakers. Then it is not unusual for me to say, listen, you're in Kansas City. I'm in Nashville. Southwest has got direct flights back and forth all day. How about if I hop on a plane and come and sit down and talk with you, and let's figure out if I'm the right fit. And if I'm not, I can really help steer you in the direction of somebody who would be the right fit. But it would be a lot better, this process would be a lot better if we could just talk about it face to face. And then, yeah, you're right. When I get off the plane, I've pretty much got the job at that point. There's just so many benefits to going deep. The other thing is, I talked about that every day, and this does have to do with process. Every day I improve my product. The other thing I do every day is I will read. Today I've already read the entire business section of the New York Times. I've been on 5 or 6 different company websites. I've been on CNN, on Fox, on MSNBC. I'm looking for business news all the time. Plus, I'm looking for everything else. I just want to know what's going on. But my job is to understand business. And when a potential client says to me, Joe, I don't know how much you know about the automotive products supply business, I can stop them right there and say, well, I do know this. I know that it's changed a lot because, for example, people in their 20s are not driving nearly as much as previous generations did. And so it's cutting down on not only the sales of new cars, but the aftermarket auto supply business, just to start a conversation by demonstrating, look, I understand something about your business. I get it what you do. that's an immeasurably powerful thing to do in your marketing. And to me, that's part of the process.
Very good. Well, right from the get-go all the way through till what you just said, following up 4 years later, here are a few more things for you, or maybe it's a new book or whatever it might be. Now, our partner in Masters Platinum, Chris Young, is a VP at BX Worldwide. They source speakers and entertainers for events, and Chris is really way beyond, I guess, what we would call a bureau person, but she has been in the bureau business for over 20 years. But she talks about this idea of when she first gets with the client and they start to plan for the meeting, putting out a postage stamp. It's a tiny little postage stamp is the idea and the purpose of what this meeting is all about. And everything that she does has to come back to achieve the result that they want, the postage stamp result that they're looking for. And so with that in mind, I think it's interesting for people to know what not to do when it comes to working with planners, decision makers, etc. And one of the things that I've heard her talk about is, sending them tons of emails, calling them all the time, really just making a lot more work for them based on the fact that they've got all these other balls in the air. You are just one tiny part of the entire, machine that is this conference trying to get to this postage stamp. And so what else do you think that people should not do? Let's talk about time and things like that.
Yeah, well, you can flip it and say what should they do is that should be easy to work with, exactly what you were just saying. And my reputation, and I've worked really hard on it, is if one meeting planner has hired me for the first time and they're talking to another meeting planner that's used me 2 or 3 times, the other meeting planner will say, you won't even have to think about Callaway. He will be the easiest part of this entire event that you deal with. He is so low maintenance, you don't even know he's there, in the sense of you don't have to worry about anything with Joe. I'm not saying I'm the best at that, but I'm saying that I've worked really, really hard at that. The other thing, and you touched on something, is to badger a prospect or a bureau with constant phone calls or emails. It's like when you get a date on hold. To keep bothering a bureau with, hey, we're holding May 16th. What's going on with it? What's going on with it? Look, they'll let you know. They'll tell you what the status of it is. And, I get a lot of dates put on hold by bureaus. Jane, most of them don't get booked. I get my share. But they're also putting dates on hold with 4 other speakers who are as good as me. And so I get about a 5th or a 4th of the dates that get put on hold. And when a bureau, I got an email on Friday, a bureau was releasing a hold, and I sent my standard email back and said, hey, Trish, thanks a million. I got it. We'll release the date. You have a great weekend. She wrote me back and she said, you are always so pleasant and so happy when we release a hold. We have speakers that actually get irritated or angry. I don't even understand that thought process of why a speaker would think that way. The client made a decision on who was the best fit. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's somebody else. But it's all this philosophy of, am I being easy to work with? Getting them information as quickly as possible, getting them the right information. Again, being really, really quick with your responses to them when they need information. That I think that could be the overriding rule for process is, am I easy to work with?
Very good. Very good. Well, let's go ahead and see if anybody would like to ask a question. If you are interested in unmuting your phone and asking a question, hit 5* on your keypad of your phone. 5* will show me that you would like to raise your hand. Now, Bill Zip has raised his hand, so let me go ahead and unmute you, Bill. Hang on a second, and I think we've got you now. Bill, let's go ahead and hear your question.
Hey, Joe, how do you manage your energy? You do keynotes that are emotionally demanding. You travel. You get right back to your clients instantly, and this is all intense kind of work. How do you manage your energy in the course of doing your business this way?
Bill, you would be shocked. There are a lot of speakers that would say I'm the ultimate slacker in this business. I think part of it, Bill, is that I've done it so long that I've found the right grooves. For example, I get up, and this is going to sound horrible to some people, and that's fine. You got to find your own wavelength. I get up most mornings about 4:30, hardly ever later than 5, because that's my most creative time. And so I'll spend a couple of hours. That's when I do my creative work. That's when I work on the upcoming presentations. That's when I work on articles. That's when I work on copy for marketing pieces that I'm sending out. I do most of my writing early morning. As far as the rest of it, it's funny. It's really not all that much. I mean, my goal since 1993, my goal has been do fewer presentations every year, but make more money every year. So I'm always looking for how can I do things that raise my fee, or how can I do the occasional consulting job for a really big old fat check that can help moderate the amount of travel I've got to do with keynotes. I do all my own travel arrangements because to me that is the least stressful way to do it. I know how I like to travel. I know what flights I like to be on. And it's funny, Bill, I am absolutely a one-person show. Now, I've had as many as 4 people working for me in the past, but now it's just me, although I do work with some subcontractors and people that do certain things for me. Jane's an expert at how to farm out work that you don't need to be doing. But I think a lot of it is, it kind of goes back to positioning. If I can get my positioning right, if I've got clarity on exactly what it is I'm trying to do, then I wrote a book called Be the Best at What Matters Most, and one of the mantras from that book, Bill, was it's not about doing the most things, it's about doing the most important things and doing them really well. And I've managed to narrow it down to, there's really only 3 or 4 things I need to be working on every day. And if I do those really well, then that kind of takes care of itself. So I think a lot of speakers would do well to go through the process of narrowing down rather than adding on. And that's a challenge for me because I love the next new idea. Oh, my gosh, nobody loves a new idea more than me. And I'm apt to go off chasing that squirrel when I should say, wait a second. There's a handful of things you need to do well every day. Go back to those. And if you're going to add something, do it with thought, do it with intention, and make sure it advances your strategy in the right direction.
Very good. That answer it for you, Bill?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and I talk about having 3 core competencies that are the things that you really want to be doing every day. For me in my business, it's writing, it's coaching, it's selling. And then outside of that, we farm a lot of it out. And I have, big lists on the board here of who's doing what on my team right now. And I think a lot of it might come down to team. And with you being a part of our Masters Platinum class, I think yourself and Penny on the line are going to be a part of our next season. We'll be delving into that and kind of helping you gain that more balance.
Hey, can I say one more thing? Can I say one more thing about energy, Jane?
Sure.
Bill, I work really hard at carving out time. I've got 2 daughters. I used to say little girls. They're not so little anymore. Jessica's 13 and Kate's 9. It is incredibly energizing to me to spend time with them. So I find that if I can carve out really intentional time every day that I'm in town, and I'm in town way more days than I'm out of town, if I can carve out time to hang out with them and hang out with Annette, that's very energizing to me. It's very centering to me. It really takes stress out of my work. And so I do think it's the whole work-life balance thing. For me, it's real important to feed myself those things that make me happy and make me centered and calm me down, because it makes me way more effective when I go back to work. I've got more good energy that I can pour into it. But I think a big way to conserve energy is to not be scattered, to have clarity on what it is you need to do and do that and not get distracted by other stuff. Okay, that's enough about that.
That's really good. That's really good. It's about the spinning plates, right? If you're focused, and that's why you're doing well, because your umbrella doesn't have too many spinning plates. Thank you, Bill. I'm excited that you're going to be joining us for the Masters Platinum. Now, we have time for one more question. If you want to hit 5-star on your phone, I'll just kind of do a little look-see and see if we've got anybody asking a question. And if we don't, I want to tell you all some little bit of information about what Joe and I are up to starting in March. Now, we take a group of speakers. Glenn, I'm going to come to you in a second for your question. We take a group of speakers who are at the 5-year mark or more in their business and are charging more than $5,000, and we take them over a 10-month process with our Masters Platinum Retreat and Mastermind. We kick it off, and last year was in Las Vegas. This year we'll be in Atlanta, and we're going to be starting on March 27th through 29th. Our big work day is the Saturday the 28th. And myself and Joe and Chris Young, the corporate kind of decision-maker meeting planner who we've discussed, will be in the room to talk to you about your strategy, and that's really our kickoff for our 10 months together. And then we get together once a month on the phone, and we have 3 calls each with Joe, 3 calls with myself. Those are private coaching calls. And we're really going to take you through a 10-month program, the idea being to raise your game, just take you from one place in your career to an entirely new place. We had several people raising their fees over the course of last year's and really raising their game in terms of presentation skills. Joe, you want to talk about that for a second?
Well, yeah, and also we've got the monthly group call. Mm-hmm. And then the Facebook page, which it's amazing how much people use that Facebook page. It's a page just for us. But people that would have questions about an immediate, hey, I just got a contract from this company and they're asking me to do this. What do you guys think? Not only would Jane and I weigh in on it, but all the other speakers in the group would weigh in. That proved to be incredibly helpful. I know from my end, I talked about marketing and positioning on some of the calls. But there were a lot of the Masters Platinum participants of this last year that, boy, we did work on their presentations. We helped, we really, really dug deep for some of them on how to reconfigure, how to rethink, how to make their presentations more effective. And we were happy to put you in touch with any of them and give you their feedback. But the thing that was such a kick for Jane and I is that, you talk about some before and after. Sometimes the progress was dramatic. And we're talking about speakers that were good. These are good speakers, all the people in Masters Platinum, because of the parameters we set. These are people that are already really good. They know what they're doing. They just want to bump it up. They want to, as my friend Rowdy McLean would say, they want to play a bigger game. And so that's our whole job, is to help them do that. For me, the payoff is it's probably the most creative work I do all year. It's really engaging and fun to me. I get a huge charge out of it. Bill, it helps me with my energy, because it's very re-energizing to me to do this work with the Platinum Group. So, yeah, it's powerful stuff.
All right, let me go ahead and if anybody has any questions about it, just hit the 5-star button on your keypad, and we'll get to answer those questions. Glenn, I think you had a question before that came up, so let's come back to you and see what it was that you were looking for help with.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Joe, pleasure to meet you on the phone. Jane has helped me a little bit with thank you. Jane has helped me a little bit with my lane, and I certainly need a lot more help, but here's my question. Early on, did you know out of the gate what your lane and business model were, or did that evolve organically over the past, 20, 30 years?
Holy cow, early on. Let me tell you about the very first days. I actually was running ads in local publications that said, need a speaker, and somebody would call me, Glenn, and say, well, what do you speak on? And I'd say, I'm not joking. I'd say, what do you want? And I'd go buy a couple of books and learn about something enough to write a speech on it by, day after tomorrow. When I started out, I did a lot on organizational thinking and management of activities and time, which is a fancy way of talking about time management. I did a lot on sales, and I did a lot on personal achievement, performance, achieving your goals, that sort of thing. So yeah, I had 3 different lanes, and then over time, that has progressively narrowed down. Now, having said that, Glenn, I'm still very much a generalist. If somebody were to say, what does Joe Calloway speak about? The most common answer would probably be business performance improvement. That's a big topic. But where I've narrowed, though, at the same time is my audience, because I rarely speak to, frontline people. I don't speak as much now to 500 salespeople. I will speak much more to an association group of business owners, or I will speak to senior leadership within a company. And listen, over the years, my audiences have gotten smaller. It's not unusual now for where 20 years ago I was speaking to a lot of 5,000 person audiences. Now I speak to a lot more 50 person audiences, because it'll be a company that'll bring their 50 branch managers or their 50, top people. So I've narrowed who my audience is as far as my targeting. And then, but to answer your question, yes, over the years, I've gotten progressively more and more focused in just about every aspect of what I do.
So it's been a process.
When I started out, I was all over the map. I really was. But that goes back to I was a speaker, and the topic and the expertise was very secondary to the fact that Joe's fun, your audience will love him, he has fun with the audience, all the speaker stuff. And you've still got to be engaging with the audience. I don't mean to make it sound like that's not important. It is. But it's reversed. It's expert positioning first now.
Okay. Thank you, Joe and Jane. I appreciate it, really.
Thank you, Glenn. Now,
Thank you.
I think that brings up a really good topic, which is you touched on it a little while ago. The fact that even if you had 1,000 people, that you might make it interactive, because speech is such an important part about what we talk about here. Talk a little bit about how you interact with people. And one interesting thing I would love you to comment on, too, is how you changed it up city to city when you did your 27-city tour.
Well, the way I make it interactive is a very simple process. I will pose a question. For example, I want everybody in the room, I want all 1,000 of you to think about now, understand, it's got to be the right audience for me to ask this question. The question's got to be relevant to them. But if it's the right audience, I'll say, what are 3 very specific things you want your customers to say about you to other people? 3 specific things. Take a minute and jot down the first 3 things that pop in your head, and then I want the 3 of you sitting together. Just turn to the people on either side of you. organize yourselves in little groups of 3, and just share with each other what you came up with. So they do that. The room is buzzing. And after 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, I'll say, okay, let me see what some of you have come up with. Okay, you right over there. And they shout it out, and I repeat it back, and I talk about it. And then I say, okay, now let's talk about how you get those customers to say that. But that's kind of the way it goes. I have them talk to each other, then talk to me. But part of what I've gotten real good at creating a space where people are willing to do that, and it's fun for them, and it's energizing, and they really like it. This audience participation thing, you got to know what you're doing, because audiences don't always want to participate. But yeah. Oh, and as far as each city, what I would do, I was in 27 different cities, and it's not. I don't force it. If I don't have anything, I won't. But for example, since the Super Bowl was just last night, I did this during football season. And when I spoke in Seattle, I said, hey, it's kind of interesting that I spoke in San Francisco yesterday morning, and the football fans in San Francisco wanted me to tell you guys that they wish you the very, very best for the rest of the season. Well, the whole room just exploded with boos and hooting and screaming, because Seattle and San Francisco can't stand each other. And so it's just a tiny thing, but it broke the ice. It showed them that I kind of got it who I was talking to. I understand I'm in Seattle. I'm not in Omaha. And just those little personal connections that you can make with any audience are obviously very important. And we all do that. I think everybody in this call does that. I think the thing is to be intentional about it so you can really, really leverage it to your advantage.
Right. And I think the intentional word is a really good one for knowing what the first words that are going to be that come out of your mouth, and make them be really intentional rather than it be some blanket, hey, it's nice to be here, it's a nice day outside. So something that's really more meaningful to them, I think, is a nice way to get it started.
I think the first 2 minutes of a speech I can't even begin to explain how important I think they are. Important.
Yep. Very good. And close. I know you worked with a lot of people on their closes.
Yep. Yep.
Now I'm going to go ahead and unmute the line, and I'll see if there's one last question. Anybody have a really quick question they want to ask Joe? We just have a couple minutes left. This is a little dangerous to open up lines like this, but we'll see. Anybody real quick? All right. Well, Jen McDonough, I see you're on the line. You might have yourself muted. Jen, are you there?
Yeah, Jen. Hi, Joe.
Hey.
Hey, one of the things I wondered if you could speak to, Jen, one of the things that we give to the people who come through the Master's Platinum program is access to our online learning modules. There's 10 modules there, and you and I recorded them together. Jen is a graduate of our Wealthy Speaker University bachelor's class. Jen, can you speak to what you think the power of those modules might be for people?
Oh, yeah. Being a speaker myself, I loved sucking every piece of knowledge out of Jane's brain during those interviews. So just being able to have that meaty content in one place that we're able to go back over into and listen again and again is really helpful, because we're all at different points and times in our journeys, and sometimes things stick a little differently at one point in our journey than others. So it's just nice to have access to those through the coaching course.
Yeah, and a lot of people might be beyond where some of them are, but I think there's some gold in there to be mined. Well, listen, everyone, I would like us all to say a hearty thank you to Joe for spending this hour with us, allowing us to pick his brain. Let's just say we'll see you soon, Wealthy Speakers, and everybody can say goodbye to Joe and myself. Thanks, everybody, for being here with us.
Thanks, everybody. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much.
Thanks, Jane and Joe. You guys rock.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.